Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar tonight. My name is Karen Visser. I'm the founder and co-owner of Violent Attention Training, and with me, I've got a very special guest and a very special friend with me. She's Wilma Jansen-Viljoen. She is an occupational therapist, but also the owner of Violent Attention Training at Witbank, but also now very exciting, Wilma, a co-owner of another branch in the Lowveld that you guys are going to open. So welcome, Wilma.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm excited again to be here. And like I said last time as well, this is such an awesome topic, and I think so relevant for this time of year. So yes, I can't wait to get going.
Yeah, and welcome to all our guests in our Zoom room. Thank you very much for joining us, and welcome to everyone on Facebook as well. We don't want to keep you waiting too long, so Wilma and I just decided this is going to be a quick one. We're going to hope, Wilma, you know, when we start chatting, it's not always that quick, but we want to have a nice and informal. It's almost like really like a coffee chat, sitting across from each other and just chatting about our children. So Wilma and myself, we are going to co-present, and if you guys have any questions at all, I would love for you to just put it in the chat box. We will answer them at the end of the session. And Wilma, yes, I think we are going to, maybe you should start. And especially I think because of your occupation as an occupational therapist, maybe, you know, and I think luckily, this is my point of view, but luckily the parents that's here tonight are our grade R parents. And when COVID struck, they were in grade double R. I think it's a little bit different with the poor children that was last year in grade R and now in grade 1. So I think we should kick off and let's just talk about what is expected. What happens in grade 1? Because our perception and the reality is actually two different things, right?
Yes. So, Karen, let me first say that, you know, it can differ per school. So you have some private school settings who might have a bit of a different curriculum, or maybe some homeschool packages that might differ a bit. But the big important area in grade 1 is all about, you know, your languages, your reading, your math skills, and your writing. So those are the three main areas that we like to focus on when we start preparing our children for grade 1. You'll see that some of the skills that they learn is a lot and comes from things that they've already learned in grade R. So a lot of schools already start in grade R with things like letter recognition and phonics. And then I know you do have some schools who already start doing sight words in grade R. So when they get to grade 1, it's basically a continuation of that, plus the work obviously gets a bit more complicated. I think if I can put into a nutshell what the biggest change is for the little ones in grade 1 is the fact that, you know, it's less play, more work. So it's more worksheet orientated. They have to sit still for longer. They have to listen to the teacher. While in grade R, it's still a lot of, you know, coloring in and cutting out, and they still they literally move around more than compared to grade 1. So I know that my little one struggled with this a lot. She likes to learn in a practical way. So when they get in class in grade 1, Karen, they definitely sometimes struggle to sit still for that long. They tend to want to fidget. They need to now listen to the teacher giving an explanation, and also remember before they do their worksheets. They will have to be able to follow multiple step directions. They have to recall what was taught. So for the first time, many children will now start to get homework, but like real homework, where they have to be able to recall what the teacher said when they're doing their homework this afternoon. And like I also mentioned earlier, they're going to start working with worksheets that need to be completed. So this is just to mention a few things that these little ones might struggle with, and these are the adjustments for them when they get to grade 1.
And I think especially now, and I don't know if maybe some of the guests that's in the Zoom room maybe can just tell us in the chat box, are you first-time grade 1 parents, or is it the second time around? But sometimes the expectations that are set for these little ones are very high, and it's no one's fault. The other day, Vilma, we had a parent there, grade R parent, that showed me a list of what is expected even in grade R, and I was so shocked that I phoned the occupational therapist here locally in Bloemfontein. She was a lecturer at the university, and I asked her and I said, Elise, is this real? Is this what is expected of our grade R's? And she laughed and she said, you know, you and I know that this is actually too high, but this is what is expected of them. And I think that's why, you know, if you can prepare your child, and that's what we're trying to do, and you can prepare yourself as a parent as well, that this will help. But this helps teachers as well, because I know we've got some people in the audience that's also teachers, because what we're going to talk tonight about is a tool that can help you to actually speak for your child, but we're going to get to that. But and I think this is just the key here, is that this is what needs to happen for the teacher to get through the work. Am I right?
Yes, Corinne, and I can just add to that. I'm currently a grade 1 mom, and if I think back to, you know, what my little one specifically mentioned, that was the hardest for her, is she said to me, the day is so long. So when you look at the amount of hours that they spent in school, it's not that much longer than what she did in grade R. But I think because of the type of classroom setting and the type of work that they do, I could definitely see that it just costs so much more focus and so much more endurance for her. So I can definitely remember that as being one of her comments. And I definitely think that this tool can speak to that as well. But we'll definitely get to that a bit later.
I mean, so now they come from school and now it's homework time. So whether you are a stay-at-home mom or your child is maybe going to an aftercare, this is what needs to happen. So Vilma, I think you should go ahead over here as well, because your input is valid over here.
Yes, so now, like I said, for many little ones, this is now their first time that they're doing homework, real homework. So they have worksheets with math problems. There's always some phonics involved, some reading involved, which they have to drill. Remember, they're going to start getting spelling words. I know most schools give out spelling words at the beginning of the week, and then they do a spelling test on a Friday. Or they hand out sight words at the beginning of the week, which are the words that you see often when you read. And then they have to be able to read those sight words on a Friday. And for a lot of children, this requires drilling. This requires repetition. And our little ones do not like repetition. They get bored quite easily. So it's a challenge for parents sometimes to keep them involved. You know, they still want to have fun. Sometimes we have to incorporate flashcards with the spelling or the sight words because they have to memorize them. School requires them to do a bit of daily reading. You know, reading is part of the homework that they get. And they also require them to do additional reading, whether assigned or not, because grade 1 is crunch time for developing your reading skills. So now all of a sudden their afternoons are not full, but their afternoons are getting a bit, you know, they have to get a bit of work done as well.
Yeah.
Compared to last year or to this year.
Yeah. And I think they get so excited when they get to grade 1 and they can now go and do sports. I think with sports opening up again, and it's choir and it's orchestra, and there's so many things, and they want to do everything. But I want to emphasize, and really as a grade, I'm a older mom, but I've got a grade 3 boy as well. So I'm talking about experiences that we need to make certain that this foundation is laid so solidly. I saw that Viv said here that she's the second time in grade 1. Oldest son, child is now in grade 2. It's not the same as it has always been. You know, you need to drill this in, like you said. And I think, Vilma, without making anyone scared, I mean, you and I know now from experiences that a lot of children get stuck with reading. You know that the older children that we work with, they don't want to read because they are so used to getting visual input. They don't want to read, and the problem here is that if they don't read, they struggle to use their imagination, and where we see that this hinders them is in grade 4, because remember, we are laying the solid foundation for them for grade 4. And that's why I really want to emphasize to everyone, please, if you do homework with your children, also don't, if they get it right the first time, think that it's going to be like that tomorrow again. All right, Vilma? The one day they can do it, the next day they struggle. So repetition is important. But this is where it comes in. And this is why we do these workshops. There's fun ways in which to do this. And we'll talk at the end where we will invite you to our tips and tool workshops for grade 1 parents, where we take you by the hand and we show you how to do this. But Vilma, I mean, homework is so important, and you and I were just talking about, and we want to talk about, what do we do with a working mom, Vilma? So the child was in school now for 5-6 hours. Now they were at aftercare, doing homework, you know, maybe with someone else. So now mom picks them up from the aftercare. Now some of these parents, and I mean, this is what a good parent should do, is they do it again. So this poor child is so tired. What advice do you have over there?
Well, Corinne, I think that the role that we as parents need to assume, we must be the ones making learning fun. Remember, these children are exposed to a lot of formal learning during the day at school. When they go to aftercare, it's a continuation of that. So there's a lot more formal learning. So if we take something like reading, for instance, you know, if they get a weekly reader, you don't have to, again, create a formal learning situation. They've done that earlier in the day. What you can do as a mom or a dad is rather take that book and right before bedtime, crawl into bed with them and read the book there. Take turns to read. My little one loves partner reading, especially now that her reading has improved a bit and she's gotten the hang of it. You know, we take turns to read. She reads a sentence, I read a sentence, or she reads a page, I read a page. You know, it creates a totally different kind of feel to this responsibility. Because if we only drill, you know, they tend to get a bit negative. So we want to definitely keep the fun in the activity. So that's just one example of what you could do. Or, you know, take them outside, sit outside, talk about the maths problem, but pack it out on the table with your knives and forks if you have to. But as a parent, try not to be the teacher. Have fun. Our little ones need that, and you'll see that they definitely interact more when we do it like that.
And Viv here, thank you so much for responding here. Vilma, Viv says, I teach grade 4, totally frustrated by the kids who can't work. And that's why, guys, what we are telling you, this is not like your parents telling you, don't do this, do this. And then only 30 years later, you say, I should have listened to my parents. This is the same. We see this. We work with children every day. So really, it's so important to lay this foundation. But like Wilma said, don't worry, we are going to help you with regards to this. But I mean, when they get home, this is what they want to do. They want to play. They don't want to do anything else but play. And in the end, we don't want our children to work the whole day. They need to play, because this is where a lot of other skills get developed as well. And that's what we will teach you next year when you come to that workshop. Is we're going to show you, when you get the homework, how can you play the homework. So don't worry about that. So let's get to the assessment that we use. And I myself has done, if I say hundreds, and I think at this stage, more than 16,000 of these tests in 7 years. And this is being, Wilma, I don't know with you guys in Witbank, but with us here in Bloemfontein, a lot of teachers, they love this assessment. I see this as a communication tool for a parent to talk to a teacher, but also a teacher to talk to a parent. So we are going to quickly go into the assessment that is available that can help you. Because remember, if you say, okay, I want to do everything right. I'm working on my plan for 2021, and we have to sit down and do homework. You need to understand what your child's specific skill set is at that stage. So what this assessment does is it's going to measure your child, but I'm going to quickly run through this. So we call this a continuous performance test. We test for 4 different areas, and I'll get to this. But what is very important, if I talk about this focus assessment, is that number one, like I said, it's been administered, I think we're over the 16,000 times now. But there is no person involved in this assessment. So, Wilma, if we look, I mean, and we talked about the school readiness tests that children does. I mean, this is totally something different. It's an add-on to the school readiness test. This is something different. Maybe you can just come in a little bit with what the school readiness test is, and then we can, put this one together.
Thank you, Karen. Yes, so the last time we spoke about school readiness a bit. So if you look at a school readiness assessment, that assessment focuses more on your physical readiness for school, so your fine and gross motor skills. It can focus on your emotional readiness for school, your social readiness for school, and there's a whole list involved. So this test can be conducted by an educational psychologist, an OT. Some schools tend to do a school readiness test in the 4th term, just to give you an indication of whether or not your child is ready for grade 1. What I like about the focus assessment is it completely zooms in on your child's concentration ability. And this is one of the only tests out there that can do this. What I love about this is it can actually compare your child's ability to the age group, to the South African age group for your specific child. So and that makes it interesting, because now we can look at, for instance, Karen will get into everything that we measure, but we can compare your child's impulsivity to others of the same age and the same gender. That makes it kind of specific, and that gives us really valuable information. So that's why I'm such a fan.
Yeah, and from my side, for those of you that don't know my story, but and this is where BioLink actually started, was when my oldest son was first diagnosed with ADHD, and a little bit later on with Asperger's syndrome. So all the people that I went to gave me different assessments and outcomes. And I was so confused, because everyone was saying something different. And with the focus assessment, there's no person involved, because if you look at it at autistic child, they are maybe, they are different in the sense of, do they like people or don't they like people? Do they like assessments? But for my son, he didn't like change, and he didn't like, if he didn't know you, he didn't trust you. So now you go and there's a person involved, and that reflects in the assessment. So what's great about the focus assessment is that there's no person involved. So why the teachers love this assessment is because now the parents know that this is not, no one's biased. This is an objective measurement. It's a scientific measurement. And this is what you want. And the most important thing that I want to stress with this is that to do assessment, and I said this the previous time as well, don't see doing assessment as a way in looking to find out if there's something wrong with your child. That's a total different way in looking at things. See assessment to rather communicate with you as a parent, to understand what your child's skill set is now, because then you understand behavior now. And that is key to what this whole session is all about, is to understand what your child's ability is now, because the wonderful thing about the brain is that it can learn all the skills that they maybe can't do now. So the focus assessment is just that, objective scientific measurement of, and I'm going to quickly show you, of all the different things. Okay. What's so important is it's quick. It's a 20-minute assessment. It's computerized, no person involved. And all they need to do is like a computer game. But believe me, they all get very excited if they hear it's a computer game, until they start doing it. And then they like 2 minutes into the game, and then they're like, okay, this is not fun, because it's not supposed to be fun. We are putting them in a situation where they are not stimulated, nothing is required of them. No, they don't have to write, they don't have to read, there's no requirements. So then we can really see their skill set when we put them in that situation, because if they are then bored in class, that is the same behaviors that we are going to see. The big thing that makes focus different from any other assessment is what we did. And remember, we developed this, co-developed this with a company in Potchefstroom, is that we added auditory and visual distractions into this assessment. Now, you will ask me, why is that important? Have you ever walked into a grade 1 classroom? It's colorful, it's bright. Have you ever sit in a classroom at a big school? There's noises. So now what happens in class, these children get distracted, either auditory or visual. And now it takes the children off task. And now what does the teacher say? See, only one thing. Always, and this is not a finger pointing, because this is the behavior you're seeing, is they see concentration. And it's not as simple as that, because if the primary problem is sensory, so they're hearing everything around them, it's the sensory issue that is the primary problem that's causing the child listening, looking around. So it's not attention. And that's why sometimes children that's put on medication gets negative results, because the primary problem wasn't attention. And medication doesn't help for filtering of distractions. But I'm going to get into that. So the auditory and visual distractions is key in this whole assessment. So what we measure, and I'm going to quickly, there's 4 things that we measure. And Wilma, we are going to talk together here, is that the first thing that we measure is consistency. So I'm going to quickly tell you what consistency is, and Wilma will now tell you what it looks like, what you need to look out for. So consistency in plain English is attention span. Starting a task, completing that task in a certain amount of time, and my quality of work stays exactly the same. So that means I can really sit down and focus, and things are happening around me. I hear it, I'm aware of it, but it doesn't take me off my task. And the key here is, especially when it's a task that is very boring. Okay, so let's look at, because this is what you're going to see. The teacher is going to call you in and say, listen, we've got a problem. Your child is not sitting still, or your child is fidgeting. Okay, so what does it look like, Vilma?
Yes, so these children, like Karen said, it has a lot to do with attention span. I mean, if you look at a task of, say, 20 minutes, and you can maintain your attention span for a full 5 minutes, then the quality of what you do during that 5 minutes is obviously going to differ from the remaining period of time. And we see this with the children because they might struggle to start a task on their own. They might struggle to finish properly, which is the flip side. They can't work without supervision. Why? Because if there's supervision, it stimulates the attention span. They interrupt themselves, they get up for a drink of water, get up to play with the dog. The quality of the work is not consistent. I think that's the important part here. So now they will do things in a certain way, and if you present exactly the same task to them a bit later, when their attention span looks different, they'll do it differently, or then all of a sudden they'll struggle to do that specific task. You can see it in something like handwriting. It's neat the one day or the one moment, and then later on it might be messy or look completely different. Then I just also have to mention handwriting can have to do with a lot of things, but we do see it as an example when we talk about consistency as well.
Yeah, I think where we normally see it, Vilma, is especially when they do that little patterns, they will start awesome. And then as soon as they get bored, it's like, oh, it just goes down. There's nothing. There's no attention, then they don't want to do it anymore. Okay.
Exactly, especially because of the repetitiveness of it, hey?
Yes,
which is a challenge to the concentration, definitely.
Yeah. And you guys will see now when we show you an example of the report, is that this part is so awesome because we can actually work out exactly how long your child can really function. Now, for 6 and 7 year olds, the maximum attention is about between, you'll see on the graph now, 20 to 30%. They can really concentrate for about 7-8 minutes, really optimally. And then they need like a brain break. And this is where we get schools that buys into what we do, is that the teachers, and I know it's not always so easy for teachers, but and Vilma has done many webinars on that as well, just standing up, turning around, and then just sit down and let's get on. Just that brain break helps them just to realign themselves and then, go forward. But what this part of the assessment is going to show you in reality is how long can my child really, in a boring task, stay consistent with his attention. Okay, so the next one, and this one for me personally is the most important one, because we see this so often, and a lot of times, and I speak to a lot of teachers, I do a lot of teacher trainings, and when I get to this part, they're always like, oh my gosh, I never knew this. Because remember, teachers see in a classroom, we can measure scientifically. So we've got the unfair advantage of seeing the difference between performance, and I'll get to that, and attention, because performance is brain processing speed. So information is coming in through the eyes or through the ears. The brain captures that information, makes sense of it, and then they do something. So an example here is where we give them multiple step directions. Vilma, you can give some examples here. But children and a slow processor is not a slow child. I'm here almost 50 years old and I'm a slow processor. That just means I need that 1-2 seconds a little bit longer to process and in my mind make sense of what you said. But now a teacher can see that, because the child says, what did you say, teacher? They see it so fast as it's attention. There's a difference. Okay.
Yes. And What also tends to happen in a classroom is the teacher is explaining something, and this child is trying to follow the teacher, but needs more time to process what's being said. But now in a classroom situation, the teacher carries on, and somewhere along the lines, the child loses the story because he's still processing what was said a few minutes ago. So what a child then does, I mean, they're children, is they do something else. So they'll look out the window, they'll play with their pencil or with the friend next to them because they're no longer following the story. So what the teacher sees is she's seeing a child that's staring out the window or fidgeting. But if we now do this assessment and we zoom in, we actually see, okay, but this is because of a slow processing speed, which is quite interesting because now we know directly what the cause is and how to address this. And for exactly the same reason, they struggle to keep up with the word pace. The assignments take long to finish. They show poor listening skills. It's just because they need more repetition than others maybe. So this for me is a very important measurement and something that really plays a huge role, especially in the classroom.
Yeah, and poor processing speed is key for maths and for reading, because the problem with a slow processor, and I need to say this, is because this is what happened to me when I was in grade 9, and because I loved maths, I loved it because I loved figuring things out. But I remember now, this is 100 years ago, but in grade 9, the teacher asked me to please, at that stage we didn't have to take mathematics. She asked me to please just don't do it because she said that you are not able to do it. And that stuck with me because I felt like a failure. And now, many years ago, because of what I do, I understand now why I was struggling with maths is because I was a slow processor. So, and maths is fast and things are happening and you need to keep up. And that, so this is why slow processing is a very key ingredient for you to understand what your child's skill set looks like so that you can help them. You know, you don't want the child to look like they struggle with maths, but they don't, because that's not the primary problem. So I want to really emphasize that. Impulse control, and I'll show you now also about 60 to 80% of 6-year-olds are all impulsive. So please, that's how they look. They can't wait their turns. It's just how it is. They haven't learned that skill yet. So it's not because they are rude or they want to interrupt you. They're not doing it on purpose. But impulse control is a big thing, you know, as they progress into the higher grades. So Wilma, what is the behaviors that we see with those?
So what we see in terms of the homework situation is, you know, they tend to make unnecessary mistakes because they're bored by what they're doing. Say, for instance, it's maths homework. They will maybe get into a habit of just filling in the answers quickly so that they can get it over with and go play, and they make unnecessary mistakes because of that. They tend to seem to be in a hurry. These children often are, you know, they show risky behavior. Those are the ones that get on top of the jungle gym and try to jump down because they're driven by their reactions and not by careful thoughts. That's something that they still need to learn. And then these children might also seem inappropriate in a certain situation. They struggle to wait their turns. And these are usually the children that the teachers see quite quickly. They identify them quite quickly because they tend to be a bit verbal, some of them, not all of them. So that's what we see with the impulsive ones.
Yeah. And then the last one, like I said, is the distraction. So there's auditory and visual distractions built in. So, and the sense of this is, you know, the bottom line is that if a child, and my son, the one that I told you, on top of all his other issues, he had learning disabilities, he had sensory integration issues. So everything, he heard everything. So they really, really struggle so much to focus, but we never knew that that was the primary problem. And a lot of times, some of these sensory issues cause anxiousness. And if they get anxious, they then get impulsive. So the one thing leads to the other. So yeah, Vilma, I mean, this is actually quite easy, you know, to explain, but you can go ahead and just in the classroom, how does it look like?
Yeah, so I apologize for the dogs barking.
No worries.
I think after lockdown, we all know what the situation is. Yes, so as you mentioned, the unique thing about this assessment is the fact that we're adding distractions. I mean, life is full of distractions. We have the auditory distractions, like the dogs barking. But we also have visual distractions. You know, those are the things that happen in the background. So when your eyes are focused on something and the background changes, say you're in your office and you're busy with a task on your laptop, and a colleague comes walking in. So any kind of sudden change to your environment, you know, which could possibly interrupt your focus, that is defined as a distraction. So children might tend to look out the window instead of doing their work. They listen to a conversation in another room. I'm sure all of us can relate to that. Some children might need complete silence while working. Posters on the wall might distract him. So with the part about distractions, this is really about the role that the environment around them plays in their ability to maintain their attention. And this is the part that I just want to also name an example from us. You know, I did this assessment with my little one at the end of grade R. And I noticed from the assessment that she's visually she tends to be quite distracted visually. So not only was I prepared for the challenges that she might be facing in the classroom, but it also made me think about where I should let her do her homework. Okay, because now all of a sudden I understood why in her situation she was taking longer. It's because the TV was on, the radio was on, we were in the kitchen, she was hungry the whole time, she was thirsty the whole time, the dogs were there. But the assessment helped me to figure out why. So now we made some changes around her homework environment, and things are really going much better. So again, this just shows how valuable and how practical one can, you know, take these measurements and implement them.
Yeah, so thanks, Vilma. So if you look at this, and I hope you guys can see, this is just an old assessment that we did, but I want to show you how easy it is to see if the teacher tells you, I see a concentration issue or any, because to quantify that is the most difficult thing. So with this assessment, we can quantify. So let me quickly show you here. So like we said, consistency is attention span. So this is now for an 8-year-old, and I know you guys can't see it there, but there on that, there's a purple line over there. That is the norm group of 8-year-old girls in South Africa. Okay, so we know where the norm group of attention lies. But what we actually want to look at is, what does this child's attention span looks like? So you can see that this attention span, okay, so we want to go to the right-hand side, because attention and processing speed is our positive building blocks. and we want this scores to be as high as possible. So that's why I said, so I can take now that 72%, because this gives me now that objective measurement in about, if I work out, because remember the assessment is 20 minutes long, right? If I work out 72%, and I didn't do this now beforehand, but let's say it's like 14 minutes, for instance, it shows me how long, if I work out my homework schedule for my child, how long can I really schedule sessions before I need to give him a break, for instance. This also helps the teacher in class, okay, to see. But you can see how easy it is to really understand and see what the child's skill set is looking like now. And as you can see over here, this child, the processing speed is too slow because it's on 40%. So this, and you know what happens now is grade 1, grade 2, grade 3, especially the girls, and you can see that this is a girl, they fall a little bit through the cracks because they want to please the teacher, they are doing their work, so you won't see any issues on marks or behavior. But we start picking them up when they go to grade 4, when the work starts getting, there's more work, all of a sudden these students, marks start to go down, and then everyone is like, but what's happening now? And then if we assess them, we see a problem like this, or a challenge like this. So you can see now that this is now the speed in which the information was coming in, so how fast and correct she could process, and she was struggling with that. So that explained the behavior. Okay, and then on this side, this is the impulsivity. So now we don't want to be impulsive, so now we go to the opposite side. So you can see, and I want you to look at the norm group here. There you can see it over there. You can see even up to 8 years, they are all impulsive. So being in a hurry, can't wait their turns, those things is not bad manners or being rude. It's just that they still need to learn, you know, that skill. But you can see with the student that a little bit impulsive, but nothing to worry about. And then on this side is where we can see our visual and auditory distractions. And the problem here is that this child, and you can see it's very low, is she is cutting out everything. And that's not good. So this is our dreamer type children, and it's we see that also because we see the processing speed. So we don't want these scores to be too low. We want it to be over there. But I don't want to go too deep into this, but this is really in short how the report looks like, and we can really help you to customize homework time. And this helps us a lot when you need to go speak to a teacher. And normally at all our agencies, when we assess a child, we ask them if they want us to go speak to the teachers, because this helps the teachers. We are actually going to do teacher trainings now for the Department of Education, where we are going to help them with regards to this, because the teachers needs help with regards to understanding why the children are struggling in certain aspects. Okay. So this is just a quick summary of what you will get from it. It's detailed, it's objective, it's compared to their peers. And I promise you, I've been doing this many, many years, Vilma, you also. I never ever don't get that, oh, I'm so glad I did this assessment, you know, because it just helps everyone to understand that behavior and where that behavior is coming from. And this helps you then to sit down and say, okay, so what's the next step? What do we do? What do we need to do? And I promise you, when we do that, the bigger children, you know, when they go into high school, some of these children have no excuse whatsoever why they may be struggling or failing. It's because they're not learning, you know. So this also shows when someone is I don't want to say fake it, but they can actually do it. They just, you know, when they see it, it just makes much more sense. So is there anything that you would like to ask or add from your side?
From my side, I just think I again want to stress the the objectivity of this report, and especially with I really feel it's so important for grade R's going to grade 1, even for grade 3s going to grade 4, to see what might lie ahead. Because behavior can be so easily misinterpreted. Remember, a teacher is standing in front of a classroom of 25, 30, 35, sometimes 40 children. So it's very difficult to correctly interpret behavior. And this is something that's really valuable in that process, because you might see one thing, but the cause of that could be somewhere that you didn't even think of. And I think that's the power of this assessment, definitely.
Yes, yeah, thank you. If there's anyone that have any questions, I would love for you to put it in the chat box. Otherwise, we are so excited that you came, and I see we've got another teacher here, Charmaine. Thank you for your message. I will send you a personal email tomorrow with regards to this. Charmaine, where are you situated? If you can maybe just put it in the chat box. I just want to emphasize what Wilma says, is this is it's so wonderful if you can start a new year with all the information that you need to really help your child to become the top achiever that you know that they can be. So really, guys, we really want to emphasize the importance, of this, and we're so excited about the teachers. Okay, KZN, thank you, Charmaine. So I'll send you a message tomorrow with regards to that. Is there any other one, Viv, any comments that you would like to make? Anyone else that's in the room? Okay, Charmaine, first time grade 1 parent. Okay, and it's great, please send me more information about your product for my own child. I would also love to hear more about how I can assist grade 4 strugglers. Okay, Viv, we will also, I will also be in contact then with you with regards to that. And this is so wonderful, Wilma. What I'm seeing here is the teachers, and we see this. The teachers want to make a difference, and I feel so sad for teachers, because to teach today with a class of 30 children, I have no idea. I've been a teacher many years ago, and okay, I had like 45 children in my class. I mean, it's just you can't do it. And I mean, that was not even in, this is now many years ago. It's not what is expected of them now. So my hat off to all the teachers, with what they have to do. But parents, you need to assist the teachers. It's a team effort.
Yes, and this is where that whole cliche, I think, of knowledge is power comes in. If you don't know, it's difficult to react the right way, and it's difficult to adjust maybe how you teach information. The more you know, the more you can act on it. Definitely.
Yeah. Okay, guys, thank you, Wilma, for your time, and everyone that attended tonight. And like Viv and Charmaine, I will be in contact with you tomorrow. I've got a meeting with the Department of Education at 10 o'clock tomorrow, so I will definitely be in contact with you. But if there's any questions of any attendee, and I'm also going to tomorrow, I will send you the recording of this. It's going to go to our YouTube channel, so I'll send you all of that. But if there's anything, and you can email me, you can email Wilma. Wilma is wilma@bilingueattentiontraining.com. I'm info@bilingueattentiontraining.com. So if you've got any questions that you want to directly, send to one of us, you are more than welcome. But thank you so much for attending, everyone. Wilma, thank you so much for your time, and we see you soon.
See you soon. Thank you, Karen.
Bye.